Welcome to this week's Behind the Poem. I'm doing something very different this week, and it's deeply intentional. First of all, this is going to be in two parts because the piece I'm sharing will not fit in the 10-minute limit that Instagram and TikTok have. And I know that's asking a lot for our short attention span, so I don't expect you to stick around even the whole of this part one, let alone make it to part two. But I think that's part of the work here is the long game. And I am inviting myself to, instead of rushing through a quick poem that guarantees more views, I'm going to read a longer piece and trust that people get what they get. And so that's one reason. Another thing I'm doing differently is it's late at night on Thursday. I am tired as shit. I should definitely go to bed, but my therapist said my curls were popping in therapy earlier today, and I feel like I just want to, give them all their glory. I also think this is a piece that deserves the night and the evening, which will hopefully be clear once I start the piece. Spoiler alert, it's about a one-night stand. And the last reason I'm sharing this piece is it's been on my mind all week. Not just because it was Valentine's Day or I went to a friend's romance novel book release. Check out Ready or Not by Cara Bastone. Those are part of it. I'm playing with this piece. It's a monologue in a larger work I'm working on right now. And as I read it the other day while timing this longer piece and project on which I'm working, and I got to the end, I was like, shit, this feels relevant for what's happening now in the world. And I'm curious about a couple things. I'm curious about what happens when we give ourselves permission to change our mind. Before the evening that I am going to share about in this monologue, I was pretty certain that my non-negotiable for finding a life partner was that he had to be Jewish. And after this experience, I realized that maybe I could let that non-negotiable go. And I have spent a lot of time in therapy over the years, realizing that for me, while being Jewish is core and fundamental to my identity and my life, and I want it to be important and fundamental in whatever house or home I build with someone else, and God willing, a child one day, I don't need a partner for whom that's also their identity, because that's what I have arrived at for myself. And so I'm curious about what stories we've decided are non-negotiable and where there's space for them to break open. And I'm not even talking about like who we want to partner with. I mean our ideologies at large, our belief systems at large. Because on this road to collective liberation, what bravery can we show up with? What curiosity to help break open the ideologies or beliefs we've told ourselves that could instead open us up to something anew? And that's what I realized is what is actually fundamental for me is finding the right partner for myself. And to do that, I knew I had to open up my ideology and belief system and non-negotiables beyond that. And so as we work towards collective liberation, I wonder how are we getting in our own way? I'm still single, and I know that I'm on a pathway that will find the right partner because of that opening, whether he's Jewish or not. I know that, like, having broken open that belief, that non-negotiable, is making space to actually allow for the right person to be in my path. And with that, buckle up for this long-ass monologue. This is called Kyle, a monologue. There's one other reason I'm reading this piece. Because it's so late at night, I don't want to wake any of my neighbors. So instead of screaming like I always do and being so fucking loud, I'm curious about what happens when I am confined to soft tenderness. I think there's something we can learn from soft tenderness in our work to collective liberation as well. Kyle, a monologue. I had no intention of meeting Kyle. I was supposed to leave Indianapolis the next afternoon on a flight through Atlanta. But Atlanta was under snow siege. Every flight to the southeast canceled, including mine. I'd have to get up at 6 a.m. to make my new flight. I Google mapped myself to a British tavern. But when I got there, it looked mundane, like a dead end. I was high from performing at a local university. I wasn't looking for a dead end. I got out of the car and turned. Right across the street, I spotted the most Brooklyn hipster taco and tequila bar eatery in the Midwest. Bakersfield. We gotta switch hands. Bakersfield. I walked in, scanned the menu, scanned the room, scanned the empty seats at the bar, and headed towards the empty seat to the left of this guy I could tell was alone, yet playfully flirting with the two women to his right. I too wanted to be playfully flirted with, or at the very least, noticed. I piled my scarf, hoodie, jacket, and bag onto a stool, sat down on the empty seat to the guy's left, ordered 3 tacos and an ice water, flung back my long curly hair, and waited. The guy appeared to be a douchey right-wing conservative, baseball hat, long-sleeve ribbed shirt, and those stupid-ass leather shoes mainstream guys wear out to bars. I asked the bartender if the taco tortillas were gluten-free. The guy goes, "I bet the ice in your water has gluten in it. Be careful." Then he commented on my water in general. Was that really all I was drinking? Yes, I said. Then what's your vice? He asked. I don't have a vice. Everyone has a vice. I drive myself nuts, I say. Later in the evening, I learn his name is Kyle. Kyle. Kyle played his courtship masterfully. The more he talked to me, the less he talked to the other 2 women who eventually left. And the more we talked, the more walls we shed. We shared our life stories with each other. Literally everything. And it wasn't forced. It just flowed naturally out of our mouths. Death, grief, loss, trauma, heartbreak. In fact, we were both going through breakups with long-term partners. He was a year out. I was just a few months. Eventually, we went to another bar where we officially introduced ourselves. I didn't tell him, but Kyle was my secret boyfriend name growing up. The name I fantasized my romantic partner might one day have. And here he was, in Indianapolis, the middle of fucking nowhere. And I had to catch a flight in 7 hours. And he was a fucking Republican. for the economy, who supports reproductive rights and marriage equality. Thank God. This was 2014, by the way. 2014. Okay. He showered me with compliments and told me I was pretty. And I felt pretty. For the first time in so many years, I actually felt beautiful. And he told me he's been in 18 weddings. Like 27 dresses, I ask. Katherine Hagel ruined my life, he says. Why does everyone always mention that movie when I say that? Why can't they comment on how I must be a really good friend? It's such a good line. It gets me every time. It's so true. At some point, he serenades me with Beauty and the Beast and Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. He is simultaneously fulfilling all of my romantic fantasies, even the Republican one I texted Elaine about 3 days prior. 2014, y'all. I'm too in shock to sing along. I want to pinch myself. I even ask him if he's real. How can this right-wing conservative, who ironically does eat gluten-free and dairy-free, is going through a breakup also, loves the best music, knows Disney lyrics and the best romantic comedies, knows all about chakras and energy, and is gorgeous, just stunningly gorgeous from a farm town in Illinois, this magnificent walking contradiction. How can he be real? When the bar closes, we find ourselves at his apartment, kicking a soccer ball back and forth in his living room. He tells me a poignant story about kicking a soccer ball with his friend as a child. Tells me I have no idea how much this means to him. Tells me he will remember tonight for the rest of his life. And we agree that the word for this thing we're sharing, is serendipity. When we move to the couch, he changes the Pandora station from Fish and the Grateful Dead to 50s, 60s R&B soul. We scrunch in close together, my legs draped over his lap, my left ear resting against the couch, our eyes totally locked. What matters isn't that he rubs my forearms and holds my hand and asks me questions about my ex and listens with an open heart. What matters isn't that he tells me the most gracious things about my work as a poet, words so gracious and intuitive I begin to cry. What matters isn't that Marvin Gaye's Let's Get It On comes on the exact moment we know it's finally, after these riveting hours together, jump each other's bones and rip each other's clothes off, of course, after first laughing, acknowledging the irony of the song at this exact moment. What matters is that I'm pretty sure we both know that in a perfect world, this would be the beginning of the rest of our lives. But in this world, in this reality, where he isn't Jewish and lives in Indianapolis and votes Republican, even though our souls are dancing a most gorgeous waltz, I keep the rest of our lives wall high. And I know he can feel it. Every time he makes a comment about a future, I know he knows. I can feel it most when I get ready to leave at 6 a.m. 10 minutes before, he had been belting Old Man River to me as we laid naked in his bed, his head on the pillow, our eyes still locked, my back resting against his bent knees. Now, he sits on the ottoman with my infinity scarf draped around his neck and says, whatever I want, to meet, to never talk again, whatever I want, our fate resting in my intuition and desire. I know he knows we might never see each other again. For the first 48 hours, every time I think of him, my pelvis pulses. On the flights home, on the subway back in New York, On the sixth day, oh no, we're not there yet. For the next 48 hours, I think obsessively about an article I wrote for the forward that my editor regrettably titled, Why I Only Date Jewish Men. Why I only date Jewish guys, sorry. After 30 years of Jewish being my number one non-negotiable, it is somehow starting to slip from my grasp. I can't tell if this is because I am trying to fit Kyle into my future, or because I'm redefining my future, unleashing my walls. On the sixth day, after God created, no, just on the sixth day, after our serendipitous encounter, I've come down with tonsillitis, and I am bedridden. I spend all day obsessing. Is fate more important than religion or political views? Is background more important than the sheer connection two souls share? Is it possible to live an entire life together based on the magic of a single night? I watch Before Midnight, as any neurotic asshole does, to find answers. The third installment of the Ethan Hawke, Julie Delpy romantic series about an American and Parisian who meet by chance like Kyle and me. Kyle and I. Two kids from two sides of the tracks, me, a white liberal Jewish girl from the affluent north suburbs of Chicago, he, a white right-wing Republican Lutheran from a blue-collar farm town in the middle of Illinois. But oh, how our souls collided, how our breaths encapsulated one another, how our bodies moved to the most amalgamated harmony and our lips touched with the most gentle and passionate fervor. He said he never kissed during sex. I said that was such a pretty woman line and asked why he did. But I knew the answer. I could have told him I love you by the end of the night, but I didn't. And here I am, sick in bed with tonsillitis, 6 days after one of the greatest nights of my life, watching this movie about a couple who met on a train, fell in love overnight, didn't see each other for 10 years, and still end up married and fighting in this final chapter. I have no answers about what I'm supposed to do with Kyle, but I have ideas about what to do with myself. I remembered this moment when Kyle held me, our bodies warm and interchangeable, and asked me to recite one of my poems. All I could whisper was, "You're an angel." Our sexual chemistry was like speaking a language I'd been waiting my entire 30 years to speak. But it was so much more. He opened me beyond dichotomy. These walls of demographics no longer chaining me. I feel like all that matters is that this one-day partner of mine, whomever they are, wherever they are, whenever we find one another, whether we already know each other or not, as long as they know God is unconditional love, that's all that matters. I imagine he'll still sit next to me at shul, still help me light the candles on Hanukkah, still stand with me under the chuppah at our wedding, still hold my hand on the bima at our children's bar mitzvah, Jewish or not, because in the end, that's the sort of partnership for which I'm looking. That's the sort of soul I want to find. Thank you.